Hello, and welcome to This Strange Reality. On today's episode, we hear from Megan. Megan is a photographer, a parent, and a paranormal enthusiast. Megan spends her time traveling to various historic and purportedly haunted locations and chronicling her travels through her photography. Megan tells the story of how a spontaneous family trip suddenly takes a turn that no one expected. This is episode 2, titled The Hitchhiker. Here's Megan.
My name is Megan. I am from Michigan. Growing up, I have always been into the paranormal. I was like the singled out one of my friends. None of my friends are into it, so I never really connected with anybody on it. I loved listening to ghost stories. Even now, I love podcasts and movies and TV shows. It's pretty much all I watch. I've always been into the paranormal. I had an aunt that was really spiritual. I grew up Catholic, which I feel talks about ghosts and demons and spirits. And I never really meshed the two until later, but because I was kind of forced to be Catholic growing up. We went to church. My dad always chose Saturdays to go instead of Sundays, which I didn't love that as a kid. But ghosts have always been a part of my life. My best friend growing up, we swear her house is like hella haunted. We never noticed anything until we did a Ouija board at her house. They did it a few times without me there. The one time I was there, nothing happened. But after that, we've had some strange experiences. We would see doors open in her house by herself. We would hang out in her kitchen, eating snacks, and they had a little TV on their counter, so we'd be there all the time. I remember once vividly just sitting on her counter talking to my friends, and her basement door was kind of like across from where I was staying in, and I watched that thing just open on its own, and it terrified me because there was no reason for that to happen. We were the only ones there. Her dog couldn't open doors, and I watched it slowly just open up. And there was another time in her house we left and we went out in the neighborhood. We lived in a subdivision and all of us lived there, so we all got to hang out all the time, and we were out in the neighborhood at a friend's house, and we came home and her mom was like, "You guys left the door open." And we're like, "We didn't even go out that door." Her front door was wide open, and that happened multiple times where they had to just continuously deadbolt her door. So that was strange. And I remember one time, the time that scared me the most at her house, we were again in her kitchen. We were the only ones home. Her parents went out for like date night or something. We were teenagers at this point, and we heard like a banging and then a scratching on her front window. And so that freaked us out so bad. We all ran from her house to our friend's house that was right down the road because it was so loud and there was no reason for it. The one other time I remember seeing what I think was a ghost, the town I grew up in, they have this dam in their downtown, and there's like a walkway above it. It's like, if you ever look up Rockford, Michigan, that's where I was born, you'll see the dam and all that, where it's right downtown. It's picturesque, pretty, and all that. And they built this boardwalk alongside the river, so you cross the dam and then you can go. It's like just a nature boardwalk. And the year they put that in, I think I was a senior in high school. And one of my friends came back that graduated a year ahead of me, came back from college, and we were eating Taco Bell on the dam. I was like, "Oh, have you been down here yet? Let's go walk down there." And there had been rumors that, I don't know, never did research, but There's rumors that a little boy drowned at the dam before. And we were walking, this was probably like 11 o'clock at night, and we were walking down that nature trail, and it's along the river, and there's houses like way up the hill, but they don't really shine light down. There was some lights across the river that we could kind of see. When we were walking down there, I swear I heard somebody say, "Come here." And so I stopped, and my friend Andy stopped, and we looked at each other like, "You just heard that, right?" And then out in front of us, probably like 30, 50 feet away, something like that, there was just a black mass standing there. Like, you could tell it was like a shape of a person, but you couldn't see any features. Like, it was just darker than the dark that was ahead of us. And I turned around and ran. I was like, I'm not about to find out what this is. I ran, and then my friend Andy was like trying to be all cool and just walk quickly away. And I was like, I'm out of here. So part of me now is like, I wish I would have looked and see if that was a person, but I feel like we would have seen like some glimpse of clothing or something, but it was just a black mass. And I feel like I completely just disassociated from that, because I went and visited him up in college like the year later, and I totally forgot about the incident. And then he said to me one time, "Remember that time we saw a ghost?" And I was like, oh my God, you are right, we did. So back in 2015, when my daughter was 2, my dad wanted to get out of town for a few days. He's a single guy, so he asked if we wanted to come along. And my husband unfortunately had to work, so just my daughter and I were available. He wanted to go to the Pinky region of Michigan. So you know how Michiganders will tell you where they're from. They pull out their hand and put the thumb to the right, and then they point to where they're from. So we were up by like where the Pinky would be, which is like Traverse City, Sleeping Bear Dunes, National Lakeshore. Leland, which is also known as Fishtown. It's a really cool small fishing town. It's really picturesque. So yeah, we went up there, and our trip started off just normal. We were just driving around, hitting all those spots I just listed. We stayed up there, I think 3 days total. And on the second to last day, before we went home, we got up. He asked what we wanted to do for the day, and I'm pretty into photography. It's just a hobby of mine, and I wanted to go to the old Traverse City State Hospital. It's an old Victorian building, and I am a sucker for old buildings. They're just so pretty, just the architecture on them. I love them all. That's one of my favorite things to do, is just to go look at old buildings. The Traverse City State Hospital is an old asylum. They cared for the mentally ill there, and during outbreaks, they would take in patients with like polio, tuberculosis, diseases like that were spreading. And before anybody judges me about bringing a toddler there, they have remodeled the building. The upstairs are now condos, apartments, Airbnbs you can rent out. I believe they do weddings there. And then on the bottom floor is commercial buildings like stores, restaurants, things like that. I know they do offer old tours there, but I've never taken one. And when we went there, it was 11 o'clock in the morning, and I've never heard of ghosts going bump at lunchtime. So I thought we were okay. We were probably there only an hour. We walked around, checked out what stores they had, took a few photos of the outside, and then left. The rest of the day was pretty normal, except for everything changed that night when we got back to the hotel. I woke up at 3 o'clock in the morning to my toddler jumping on me, yelling, "Ghost, ghost, 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 ghost." I didn't even know she knew that word at the time because she was only 2 years old. The only thing she watched at the time was Mickey Mouse Clubhouse, and they really didn't have episodes about ghosts, so I didn't even know she knew it. And yes, I am into the paranormal and things like that, but I wasn't watching it around her, so I really don't understand how she could have known what a ghost was. The room was dark. I didn't know what to do, so I kind of just rubbed her back, let her lay on me until she fell back asleep, and just try to calm her down and tell her she was safe and fine. The next morning, she got up, seemed totally normal, might have just been a bad dream. So we packed up the car and left and went home. When we got home, I told my husband what happened and where we had been, and he was not happy with me. I mean, like I said, like you don't think about anything bad happening. It's now a commercially used area. There's plenty of people there. It's not abandoned anymore. And then she seemed totally fine, and it was just like a one-off incident, so I didn't really think anything of it. And then just kind of over the next few weeks, her demeanor and attitude and everything about her just kind of changed. She started acting not like herself. She'd always been a good sleeper. That kind of changed. She started waking up every night and her eyes would be shut, but she would sit up in bed and just start whimpering. Not full on crying, but like whimpering, like she was sleep crying almost. It was very strange, and she had never done anything like that before. It was every single night it was happening, where I'd get woken up either 1 or 2 times a night, and it just wasn't normal. My husband came home from work, and he works nights, so he came home from work, and she didn't, at the time we worked really weird opposite schedules, so she never had both of us at once together, and it was pretty late, and she ended up waking up hearing him when he came in. So we're like, she can hang out for a little bit with us. She never gets both of us together. So we were playing, I remember we were playing with a ball, rolling it back and forth or tossing it, something like that. And she stopped dead in her tracks, pointed at the corner and said, "There's a man over there." And of course, I'm like, "Excuse me?" And we couldn't see anything. We turned on all the lights outside, even though our curtains were shut. We couldn't find any trace of a man there. My husband went out and looked, nothing. And so I'd asked her, I said, "Is this like a little boy or is this an adult?" And she said it was an adult, but she couldn't give me any other details. And then eventually she was just kind of like, "Okay," and just walked away. But she did that multiple times. It wasn't just like a one-off incident. So after a couple weeks, this kept going on, and we were starting to get concerned about, is she ever going to sleep through the night again? Did something follow her home? We don't know. Because there's rumors of that place being haunted, but I didn't know much about like the haunting history when we went there. It's just, an old state hospital. There's got to be something going on. So we were just trying to like just wait it out. Is it anything happening? No, nothing changed. She kept waking up at night. She kept pointing out and saying there was a man there. So I ended up, one day I was at work and my dad called me, and I kind of let him know what was going on. And he's like, "I'll call you back." And now, like I said earlier, my dad, very Catholic, practices. He still goes to church every Saturday instead of Sunday. He thinks I kind of asked for it by saying I wanted to go there. And even now when I go to these places, like I've been to, my husband always goes with me to these places now, but I've been to Crescent Sanatorium. I've been to Ohio State Reformatory, Indiana State Sanatorium. I just went to Eloise this summer in Detroit, just did photos and check it out. But every time I go there, he's like, "It's going to happen again." He calls it the Hitchhiker. And one thing I should mention, he did ask his priest. Like his priest did mention that this happens more than you would think, that he gets requests for like home blessings and things like that. And he did mention if it didn't work, we were going to have to go back to Traverse City. I don't know what we would have had to do, but he said we would have to go back and drop him off. He went to the Catholic diocese. He picked up a crucifix, holy water bottles, got some chalk, and he took it straight to his priest and got it blessed. While he was there, his priest told him, "This is more common than you would think." And during this time, I wasn't experiencing anything. I couldn't feel anything different. We had a dog at the time, and he wasn't sensing anything. It was strictly just my daughter. We didn't feel any cold chills or anything like that. It was strictly at night. During the day, she seemed totally normal, and she wouldn't even talk about it during the day. It seemed like this was only happening at night. There was nobody else that felt anything. I didn't feel anything, didn't see anything. My husband didn't. Our dog was acting completely normal. Because you would think like an animal would pick up on something like that. And we didn't own our cats at the time. We only had our dog. And he was completely normal. He wasn't growling at walls or anything like that. It was just strictly like her. And then after my dad Went to his priest. I got a call from him that says, I have your exorcism kit. So didn't really know how to respond to that, but I was like, okay. And he dropped it off to me. It was just like a normal cardboard box kind of. And then it had some letters written on it. It was letters, but it almost looked like a math equation. There were some numbers, some letters. There was definitely like a plus or a cross in there. And what I was to do with it was to take the blessed chalk from the priest, right above every one of my door frames, what was written on the box. And then I had to say the Our Father prayer as we went around and sprinkle holy water as I was doing it. So that night when I got home from work, I did everything as I was told. I went to every door in our house, and the last door I got to was our kitchen slider door. And off to the right if you're standing at the slider door, off to the right, we had a room there. It was an addition. It was strictly a family room. There was no pipes, no running water to it. And when I did the last door, said the prayer, did the writing on the door, I heard a hissing noise. And it didn't sound like animalistic. It sounded like a pipe almost. But like I said, there's no pipes, no running water to it. It made no sense. There was no pipes on that side of the house, even in my basement. There was none over there. So it lasted about 15 seconds and then it stopped. And I know nobody else was in the house with us. My husband was at work. My dog and my daughter were both with me. So I know it was nothing else. And it just stopped. And that night, and from then on out, my daughter has slept through the night. She's never woken up and whimpering again. I mean, there's times she wakes up, but it's like a thunderstorm or something, like things normal kids wake up to, or she's sick, whatever. She's not like whimpering with her eyes shut anymore, and it's not a nightly thing anymore. And she's 11 now, has no memory whatsoever of this happening. I think when she was about 8, she heard the story for the first time when my dad and I were talking about it, and it blew her mind. She has no recollection of seeing a man. She has no recollection of even going to the pinky region, as we call it. She's totally fine now. I personally love to go to these places still. I've been to a few other ones strictly for photo shoots. I've never done investigations or anything like that. I love to just go take photos of these places because I think they make great subjects and they're really fascinating to look at, hear the history of the place. People love seeing the photos too. And sorry, I just heard a noise outside. But yeah, I love going to these places, and part of me wants to go back to Traverse City, back to the hospital, because it's a gorgeous building, but I'm nervous, and I know if I ever do go back, I won't be taking her. I've never taken her to one of these places with me since, and my husband sure as hell won't let her go. But yeah, that's pretty much the story. Surprisingly, for like Catholics and stuff, my family was pretty open with ghost stories. My grandma, actually, she's the one who we were talking to when my daughter heard the story for the first time. My dad was telling my grandma about it, and she's since passed, but she mentioned, so I wish I got more details on this, but she mentioned that her brother actually wrestled a ghost in their house before. I don't know many more details about that, and my dad has a whole bunch of strange experiences he loves to talk about. I should have had him come with me today. Yeah, I can, I don't know if he would pick up tonight, but I can contact him. I can text him tonight. I don't know if he would do it today, but I can text him and ask him if he wants to be a part of it.
After hearing Megan's story, I still had a lot of questions. And to get a full picture of what happened, I knew I would need to talk to Megan's father, Matt. So a few days after I spoke with Megan, all three of us met for an interview. And I would come to find out that Matt is not only a devout man of faith, but also a lifelong paranormal experiencer. During our conversation, Matt explained what led him to seek help in the manner that he did. Here's Matt.
Megan's father, this whole incident ended up with her 2-year-old daughter at the time, Macy.
You didn't say your name.
What's that?
You didn't say your name.
Macy.
No, your name.
Oh, I'm Matt Money. I've dealt with the paranormal my whole life. And this is the first thing I've ever done to chronicle anything about it. I've had a lot of serious things happen to me in my life. And so it's kind of good to get one of the situations that happened off my back, or just, it kind of haunts you. And so you want to get it off your back in a way. I mean, you need some kind of release, it seems like. What happened is Megan and I decided, Megan loves photography. I like it too. She does buildings, landscapes, whatever, And we decided to take a trip up north to Traverse City area. It's about 3 hours away. And we were going up there to take Macy, just get her out of the house or whatever, and just enjoy fall for a couple days. We'd drive down the road. Since we love photography, we'd, hey, look at that right there. Stop, money shot. You know what I mean? That looks cool, So anyhow, we took off in the morning, and we got up there, probably about right before noon. And we went to the I think it was Point Betsy Lighthouse, and it was really nice. The weather was cooperating really good. It was sunny. Trees weren't in full bloom, but the maples were yellow and red. So it was right at the start of color season. And it was like the first or second week of October, pretty much. So we went up there, went around the in that dune area there, and we did some photographs of Macy running around on the beach, 2 years old, running crazy, and then some pictures of the lighthouse. And then we took off that day. And the plan was to do more of that touristing thing. Prior to leaving, there's a beautiful, I don't know if you call it Gothic structure, but it's the old state hospital up there, right in the middle of town. When you come into town in Traverse City, you come down this big hill, and you can see the top of it over the treetops. I mean, it's really big. It's from like 1870, and it was a mental institution along with being a hospital for everybody in northern Michigan and in the upper peninsula of Michigan. So the next day we got up. That night it rained pretty hard, and it was letting up in the morning, and it was one of those mornings in Traverse City where on Lake Michigan, in Superior, whatever, all the Great Lakes, the big black clouds come floating in fall. Big rollers, and they're really dynamic in regards to picture taking. They make for great backgrounds. And so we got up, and so because it was raining on and off, we couldn't predict it. So we decided what we're going to do. So I'm being an antiquer. I buy and sell antiques. And I said, well, this antique store opens in 10 minutes, So we went there, busted out an hour, It got a little warmer out. And then she says, if I remember correctly, guess what's right down the road, really close by? And I'm like, no, I don't want to go there. Come on, let's go. I'll just take pictures, she said. I'm like, all right, what's the harm in that? We go there, it's picture perfect day. I mean, the sun peeks out, boom, everything lights up. Then they get the black sky, behind it. It was really good that way. So she keeps talking. We get in the back of the parking lot, and we stop, and we get out of the car, and she's taking pictures. Let's go in, she says.
I just wanted to see what shops were.
I know,
They remodeled it, and it was like restaurants and shops down
and
below.
condos at top,
And now they're like Airbnbs you can rent out.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
If you want the experience, folks. So when we were arguing in the parking lot, it got a little steamy. I noticed, I looked off to the left, and Macy was in this grassy area, and there's a giant oak tree there. I don't know much about the oak tree. And she was walking around with her hand on the bark, and the bark sticks out, about that far because it's such an old tree. And she's walking around like this with her hand, and she's talking or singing. She always does that even to this day. So I don't know if it's out of her character or whatever, but you go inside, and it's all these little shops in the lower area. And what I did notice, they were really small shops.
Yeah.
But nothing really happened there. And when they got done, we went outside. And what I remember is we were walking down a sidewalk that's going this way. And then on the other side, this is in the front of the place, because we walked around the building just to get some shots of the front. And all of a sudden, me and Megan go one way. Macy goes all on her own walking the other way. She's walking along, and she's holding her diaper up and away from us. And she's just gabbing away with somebody, keeps looking to the left. She was conversing, it was really weird.
She's a toddler. She was babbling.
She was babbling. We were laughing, but, at the time, the dance, we go out and get some dinner, whatever happens. We get back to the hotel, and it's the second night in the hotel. 3 o'clock in the morning, Macy gets up, and she's blood-curdling, screaming, "There's a ghost in here! There's a ghost in here!" Is that what you heard, too? That's what she was quoted as saying?
No, she just said, "Ghost, ghost, ghost." ghost and jumped on top of me.
And was screaming, man, just screaming. We don't think anything of it. And that's when we came back, later on that day. And then over a period of 3 weeks, Macy's waking up in the middle of the night. And at times she's sitting up like she's sleeping, and she's sleeping. She's got her eyes closed, but that she had this whimpering sound that she was doing.
I can't really recreate it, but her eyes were shut, and it was like she was asleep but crying and sitting up.
So she's up all night. None of them are getting sleep, and they're arguing about it and all this. And so I had some vacation days to burn at work, and being the Catholic guy that I am, and whenever anybody bought a new home, my parents would buy a new crucifix, and they'd have it blessed and give it to him as a gift. So with that tradition, I wanted to carry it on because Josh and Megan and Macy just got a new home probably 3-4 months earlier.
It was about 4 months, but we had no prior issues or anything before this trip.
Yeah, here in this home. So what happened is I thought, hey, I got to burn some time. Maybe I should go try to find that crucifix today. And then she called me up and told me some stuff about her up at night. And she was telling me how Macy would just say ghost when they're watching TV together and point her off to the side and that kind of thing.
She wouldn't say ghost. She would point and say, there's a man over there.
Yeah, that. And then, then your mind started wondering, you know what I mean? So I decided to get that crucifix, and you can't go get one at Walmart, So I called the diocese, and I went down to they have a gift store. And I said, do you have many crucifixes for sale? She goes, we got the bunch, So I drive down there, it's about 1 or 2 in the afternoon, and I end up buying one, and real nice one, actually. And what happened is the lady at the cashier says to me, well, you can go upstairs and have, there's priests up there. I'm sure somebody up there will bless it for you. So I go upstairs. There's a group of 3 priests is all I saw. I walked around, hey, fellas, one of you guys could bless this for me. Nah, we're too busy. They were arguing about something. I don't know. So I got out of there, went to the parking lot, and I was sitting there in the parking lot. And I thought, I'll just call my parish, my parish. And so anyhow, I go to my church, or I called them up, and she says, yeah, bring it by. And I'm on my way out there, and I'm going to be late. It's going to be after 5, and I'm like, man, they might close. I don't want to drive there, you know what I mean, if I can't get this done or drop it off. So all of a sudden I called up there. The lady in the office says to me, by the way, Father Mark called, because I said, I'm going to be a little late. How old lady you up to? She goes, hey, Father Mark called. He's going to be here in about a half hour, and so he'll meet you and bless it in front of you. I said, oh, that'd be great, you know what I mean? So I went out there, and then what happened he goes, wow, this is it, huh? That's a beauty, man. So what's it for? Is it for your house or what? What's going on? And I said, well, it's for my daughter's house, and I told about the tradition of my parents. Oh, okay. And I said, and then there's some other weird stuff going on. He goes, what's that? And I told him what's going on with Macy, and he goes, really? They do that all the time. Let me tell you, I got some stuff. I'm going to get you a package together. I'll be back in 7 minutes. Here's the key to the church. I want you to do this for me. Unlock the church, the side door. I want you to go up to the altar, kneel down, say a prayer right on the altar. And then I want you to grab 3 of the bottles that are sitting in the wicker basket next to the baptismal font. Dunk the bottles and fill them up. Get 3 of them and bring them back up here. Make sure don't lose that key, but lock the door and bring the key back here to me. And by the time you get back, I'll be back. And he blessed the crucifix, put on his vestments and stuff. And he was dead serious, get all serious. Blesses the crucifix. And he hands me the crucifix. He says, here's what you want to do. And he has this whole kit he gives me. And it was this little prayer card. Then it was chalk. With the chalk, he gave me the directions where I have to write initials above the doorways, any doorway into or out of the home. And it's a bunch of initials, W plus this, plus this, plus this. And I don't know what it meant or anything. I didn't go into that much detail with him. But this is what he said, do it. There's a chalk, do it above it. Tell her to do it above every door. And then he gave me I had the 3 holy waters that were there. And he says, one of them, you give them to your dog. One of them you give to your daughter, Megan. She needs to go around her house, and at every corner in her house, inside and out, drop, just some droplets of holy water at every angle in the house, outside the house, and on the stoop before every door. And I said, okay, what's the second bottle for? And he says, you give that to your granddaughter Macy, and every time she sees the ghost, you want her to squirt it at it and tell it to go home. I said, what's the third bottle for? You're just a sinner. You're going to need this. And he told Megan to say, there, Father, walking around the home. Is that correct? Yeah. And while she's doing the whole thing, then I said to Father Mark before I left, I said, Father, this don't work. What do? Well, you get your daughter, your granddaughter, you get her in the car, you pull up and pick them up like you did, and you have your daughter, Macy, your granddaughter, Macy, tell them to get in. You're going back home, and you're driving back to Traverse, and you're going to pull over in that parking lot, and you're going to pop the door and tell them to get out. And if he don't, well, then I'm going to call the bishop. I don't know. I've had a lot of experiences where it's just like, when I knew something had to be done. What? To what extent? It hadn't gotten violent yet, but who knows what would have happened. And it doesn't always end up in violence either. You know what I mean? You just don't know because you don't know who you're dealing with.
Yeah, it never felt...
Try to scare you or anything.
Yeah, and obviously she was afraid seeing like somebody who she doesn't recognize or something like that. So it was scary to her, but like my husband and I didn't feel anything different. Our dog wasn't acting different. We weren't feeling like cold spots or anything like that.
And I firmly believe that what we're looking at here, there's more to it. There's a whole other background. I don't even know what to call it. A world that we don't see.
Different dimension.
A different dimension that we're unable to see, and only so many people have the ability to see that. And but I firmly believe that there is this other dimension. I've had too many crazy things happen in my life. There's a bigger picture going on. It's not because I'm religious. It's just that that's pointed out to me. And like I told you, I'm not afraid of these things because, like I said, I'm devout, man. I got JC. But, people listen to you and they think you're full of shit. I don't care. You believe what you want. I don't like the fact that this stuff has happened. You know what I mean? Because it just makes you feel like you're not normal, But it's not like I have any ability of feeling it. It just happens to me. It's one of those things where it happens to me. I have no power. I have nothing, that they want or, And it's good to talk to you because it's like most people poo-poo you and act like you're an idiot and you're automatically shut down and you're a fool, And so I'd rather talk about it with some people who just go, whether they've had similar stuff happen or not, there's something to it and it's here, it's real. There's no denying it. I think that the paranormal is because it's always been forced on me. I didn't ask for any of it. Okay. And I think that it's deep in my faith. I think because of the fact that there's more going on than we can even fathom. It's out there, it's real, and it discovers you versus you discovering it, I think. I think it seeks you out for whatever reason, I have no idea. And it's happened numerous times over the period of my life, and it's always bizarre. You could never have predicted the ending the way it started.
That was episode 2, titled The Hitchhiker. I'd like to thank Megan and Matt for sharing their story. Now, even though I personally don't subscribe to any organized religion or specific dogma, I did grow up in a religious household. And even though I have distanced myself from religion, I can still understand Matt's perspective on how to process and potentially remedy paranormal occurrences. I'd like to point out that even though this experience was influenced by religion, at no point did anyone involved come to the conclusion that this was evil or demonic, which is something we so often see in stories related to the paranormal. And I feel like it shows that there can be multiple ways to respond to a paranormal experience. If you have a paranormal or anomalous story that you'd like to share, you can email it to stories.thisstrangereality@gmail.com. Again, that's stories.thisstrangereality@gmail.com for a chance to be interviewed for the show. Thanks for listening.